Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us. I'm Robert Baylor, Director of Communications at NUCA. Welcome to this month's webinar. First, before we begin, some webinar housekeeping. Today's webinar will be recorded, and a copy of the recording will be provided to all registrants and attendees. It will also be made available in the next few days on NUCA's YouTube channel, which can be accessed via NUCA.com. Now about your WebEx Meetings webinar screen. There are two buttons on the lower right-hand side of your screen titled Participants and Chat. Clicking on Participants gives you a list of webinar attendees. You can chat amongst each other, or you can send the host questions or messages. All participants are muted upon entry. Phone participants can use *6 to mute and unmute themselves. Questions will be saved and asked at the end of the webinar. To ask a question, you can submit a written question at any time using the chat feature, and I will read those written questions to our presenter at the conclusion of his presentation. Now let's get started. This month's webinar is on the brand new NUCA Advantage 401k retirement plan option now being offered to our members. Our benefits partner MemberFi will explain this employee retirement plan option, its many benefits to a company and its employees, and how this plan can make your company more competitive and retain your employees. Today's presenter is Mr. Chris Price, NUCA's Advantage Financial Advisor. As a financial representative with Coastal Wealth in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, he's part of an advisory team that focuses on coaching association members throughout their financial life and goals. He graduated from Susquehanna University with a degree in finance and entrepreneurship, and has his CFP, RICP, and CHFC certifications, FINRA Series 7 and 66, and Florida state licenses. He is also a member of the Financial Planning Association. Thanks so much for joining us today on NUCA's Webinar Wednesday. Chris, I turn the webinar over to you.
All right, well, thank you. That was the first introduction you did for me, and I hope not the last, because I might hire you to do that again.
I'm cheap.
Like So yeah, I do plenty of workshops throughout the week, and I need someone to introduce me like that. But basically, the topic at hand, right? Today we're going to talk really just about the retirement plan that NUCA has rolled out through the MemberFi program. We'll talk a little bit about the MemberFi program. We'll talk a little bit about the 401k stuff, and we'll kind of end it there with some questions. So with that being said, we'll definitely get started. So NUCA Advantage MemberFi, you guys have probably heard this name thrown out a few times. And the big reason why it's been thrown out a few times is NUCA is actually doing a really good job of trying to create the best ROI for its members. So what they're saying is, hey, you guys are all your association members. We want to make sure that the fee you provide us is getting the best rate of return. So they've teamed up with MemberFi in order to create that. Now, who is MemberFi? MemberFi is a nationwide company that was designed to provide the best benefit for association members. So they've searched the globe for the best group benefits agents, insurance agents, the best financial advisors and investment advisor reps, the best payroll company, best HR solutions, anything you could think of that will provide value to association members. And they were able to get discounts and less costs and more value because of that. My team and I, we're that retirement connection. Our job is to figure out the best retirement account for the association, be able to get the cheapest cost for it, most value, best service, all that kind of stuff. And that's what we're going to talk about for NUCA. For NUCA, though, the two main contacts you're going to have from our team is going to be Dan Henley and myself. Now, Dan Henley, he's a certified financial planner, which is the highest designation we get within the financial planning arena. He's been in the business for 30 plus years and has seen literally everything. If I ever have a question about how a plan should be ran, he's probably seen it in its past. These are from plans that are from one member, right, an employer-employee member, to international plans. And then myself, like Bob was saying, certified financial planner, RICP, CHFC, that kind of stuff. But it takes more than just us to make sure something like this happens. So as you guys go through this program, you'll hear from other people who are part of the team, mainly our administrative staff. So some of you may have already met some of these people, talked to some of these people, or emailed back and forth. We have Kelsey Stoff. She's going to be the team lead for this program, making sure that, again, if there's any paperwork needed or processes needed to be complete, it is done to the best and most effective way possible. Your main contact will be Jackie Wright. Jackie Wright's going to be that person to make sure that every paperwork is done right, beneficiaries are set up correctly, trustees are done right. Whatever the case might be that revolves some kind of administrative work, she's going to be the one that's going to be in charge of that. And Robbie's our workhorse, right? Robbie's the guy who we tell him to do something and he makes sure it gets done better than everyone else. So I want you to guys get a little familiar with these individuals because these are the individuals that are going to make sure that there is no we forgot scenario that happens to anyone's plan. And I always think it's important for me to talk a little bit about myself since I am presenting, but again, Bob did a great job, so I'm really not going to spend any time on this. But everybody has access to my information. Everybody has access to talk to me, schedule a time on my calendar, and have a more in-depth conversation if we need to than we're able to give right now. Right? This presentation is designed for the thousands of members that are part of NUCA. I'm sorry, part of NUCA and MemberFi, but part of NUCA. So this is going to be general. If you need something more in depth, if you need something that's particular to you, you'll have that access to us. You have access to me. So first and foremost, why come together? Why should we have a 401k where we leverage our other team members? What is the value to this? And this is not just a 401k, but this could be anything. What is the value of bringing it together? Well, I think we all know, and there's many quotes throughout history to show the value of coming together to perform something. If we look at Steve Jobs said great things in business are never done by one person. They're done by a team of people. Or one of my favorite quotes, many hands make light work. Or a man can move a rock, but a village can move a mountain. So we know the value of having more than one to try to solve some kind of issue. Well, how do we do that with a 401k? We do that through what they call MIA, a multiple employer aggregated plan. And really what that means is each employer can have their plan design. So we may have some people on this call who have a 401k currently that the company matches 3% or 5% or doesn't match or gives profit sharing or any of the other million of options you have when it comes to creating a 401k. And we want to make sure we could keep that unique ability to have what's best for you and your employees. But we want to be able to leverage the association to have lower costs, better service, better ROIs, a better value to our employees. So that's really what a Me app does. Kind of would make sense of why this would be a smart business decision. It's going to significantly reduce the workload of whoever's in charge of that 401k for you guys now. It's going to significantly reduce the responsibilities. We're going to move the fiduciary liability to individuals who are trained for it. We'll talk a little bit later about fiduciaries. The thousands of plans that I see a year, the majority of all of them, the fiduciary is that either business owner, CFO, CEO, but may not be as trained in 401k as they'd like to be. So we'll talk a little bit about that. We're not going to need the companies to approve any loans or distributions or quadros. For anyone on the call right now who's part of HR who has to do that now, you know that's a burden when employees come to you and have to have approvals for loans, approvals for distributions. Well, this will be taken care of. And one of my favorite things is Form 5500 signing. So for anyone on the call right now who either signs Form 5500 themselves or someone on their team, their company signs them, CFO, CEO, whatever, you put yourself liable for things like administrative liability and stuff like that. And we'll talk on that. And then probably the main reason why most people want to join is they want to reduce their costs. So I don't care how good your investments do, with lower costs, they could have done better. And that's the point of coming together, because we're not just one company. We're 17 plus 100 companies coming together to reduce the cost for everyone. So many of you on this call have either had a 401k or maybe just interested in setting up a 401k. Well, on your screen right here is typically the responsibilities on you to set up that 401k or to the ongoing management of that 401k. Now, as you could imagine, I'm not going to read through this because that would be a whole presentation on its own. But again, for some of you who have a 401k, you know this, you see this, you've had to do this. For those of you starting, these are usually those duties. In fact, the IRS will give you thousands of dollars in credits to start a 401k because they know there's a big burden or hurdle to do it. So our first goal is always to try to knock out as much of this as we can so it's not on you guys to do it. So for individuals who do decide that this 401k is right for them, or at least want to explore it, your responsibilities will change. and they'll look more like this. Initially, you have to sign an agreement that you want to join. I think that makes sense to everyone, that we can't do that for them. They have to want to join. And then we want to choose the design that's right for them. If you remember me talking about just a few minutes ago, we were talking about that each company is unique and how they want to compensate and reward their employees, either giving a match, meaning that the employer is also putting money into those employees' retirement account, or they want to have some kind of profit sharing when the business is more profitable than lease, or some kind of DB plan, which stands for pension, or which stands for defined benefits, but it's pensions, cash balances, things of that nature. So we do need to know how you want that plan designed, and we'll obviously walk you through that. And then ongoing, instead of all that whole list of stuff you saw, all would need to be done is really a census, send money in that your employees want to contribute. And the third one is optional, but we really like it. And that really is periodically review your plan. So we do like to do an annual review for each plan, because our first and number one goal, even before it comes to taking on responsibilities, is making sure you guys have the best plan, period. So we talked a little bit about the duties. Now let's talk about the people you have to support you on this program. Because it takes a village to move a mountain, like we talked about before. And you already have a village set up to help you get through either setting up a 401k or having a better 401k than you have now. You'll see record keepers, Lincoln Financial. We'll talk a little bit about them. You'll see a TPA, which stands for third-party administrator, being the Retirement Advantage. We'll talk about them. We'll talk about the different fiduciaries, the 316 fiduciary. We'll talk about the 338 fiduciary with Morningstar. We'll talk about audit services. Now, audited services are only necessary for companies of a certain size or a certain dollar amount in their 401k, but we'll touch on that. We'll talk about advisory services. Advisory services are basically this. It's great to give our employees the tools. We also need to teach them how to use it. I would say probably a majority of everybody on this call who's part of NUCA does some kind of construction. Well, you definitely do not want to give one of your employees heavy equipment who doesn't know how to use it. And that's the same thing. Their job is to teach on how to use these tools. Let's start a little bit with Lincoln Financial. Why is Lincoln Financial the right step for you, or the right record keeper for you? Well, the main thing we want to look at was one of the last lines on the slide, which is how long they've been doing multiple employer plans. So multiple employer plans are kind of new in the industry, but Lincoln's been doing them for a few decades now, since 1995, which means they've ironed out all the issues that could have been there years and years and years ago. And they've proven their success by having $76 billion in those kind of plans, having 20,000 plan sponsors, having 1.5 million retirement plan participants. And they've done it without hurting a reputation, keeping their reputation A+ through that whole time. So the record keeper, being Lincoln, I want to make sure I define the record keeper, period. For everyone on this call who has a 401k, usually name the company of the site you go to, or the site your employees go to, or who they think is the only one doing their 401k. That's the record keeper. We've chosen Lincoln because of the strength that they've had and the experience that they've had. But now let's talk about TPA. For everybody on this call who has a 401k, you know you have what they call a third-party administrator. Now that third-party administrator might be supplied to you by the record keeper, especially if you have a payroll company like ADP or something of that nature. The third-party administrator is something needed to have by IRS and ERISA standards to make sure your plan is following the right rules. The IRS code book is huge. We don't want everyone to be a professional. Their job is to be a professional on it. Because of that, they're also going to be our 316 fiduciary. For every single person who does sign the Form 5500 or someone in their company signs it, they probably, statistically speaking, do not have a 316 administrative fiduciary. That's usually their job to sign off, because that person is the one taking responsibility that that plan is done correct, that each participant got the correct dollar amount out of their paycheck into their 401k, that each participant got the right amount that the company gave to them, that each company did not give too much to the highly compensated and not enough to the ranked and file. I will tell you this, that's probably the best fiduciary you could have to keep you out of trouble. You guys could all do some research about the companies that have gotten in trouble or gotten sued, I should say, from their employees because of their 401k plan. One of the biggest ones is John Deere about 10, 11 years ago from now. If they had a fiduciary, a 316 fiduciary on file, it wouldn't have been John Deere's company issue. It would have been the fiduciary's issue. So that's a super important thing to have when we start talking about that. And then the 338, Morningstar. 338 fiduciary, everyone's familiar with Morningstar. They're the largest rating agency in the world when it comes to investments. They rate mutual funds, stocks, bonds, ETFs, basically everything that's considered an investment, they're a rating agency for it. So we employed them to be your fiduciary, your 338 fiduciary. Let's explain a little bit what that means. If you looked at your current 401k right now, you would see a list of investments. ABC investment, XYZ, whatever. The list goes on and on and on. Now, there's thousands of investment companies, as everyone can imagine, and a lot of them do the same kind of investments. So you may have a company that has a mutual fund called ABC and another company that has a mutual fund called XYZ, but they're invested or they're designed to be the same way. Now, how do you know that the one that's in your plan is the right one? If the investment company ABC is better than XYZ, how would you know that you need to switch? And who's responsible for that? So if you don't have a 338 fiduciary, you're responsible for that. If the cost of one investment is more than something else, but that one investment that costs more doesn't show more value, who's responsible for that? So in our case, we're going to make Morningstar responsible for that. So there's never an issue of we don't have the best investments, the most profitable investments, the least expensive investments for you, for your employees. And then Templeton Company would do a lot of the auditing services. I'm not going to get too much into detail about this because, again, it's only for companies that has a certain amount of plan participants or that has a certain amount of assets in their 401k. So it's unique to those individuals. If you are one of those on the call, send us an email. We'll have a conversation about that. The value we could bring to this one is because we're leveraging the entire association, auditing costs are about half of what they are if you're out there by yourself. But again, if you do want to have a more in-depth conversation about this, send us an email because it is only for some companies. And then last but not least, right? I talked all about this product, this tool. Now we need to talk about how to use it. So what I've found, or what we found in our career, is a lot of employees may not even know how to use their 401k. They may not even know where to go and look for it. They may not know which investment to have, who their beneficiaries are. Should they give more? Should they give less? So we set up this tool, but we don't teach our employees how to use it. Well, that's where Invest in Knowledge comes in. So Invest in Knowledge is a non-for-profit we've teamed up with that only does free financial services and financial workshops and provides financial services through one-on-one meetings free of any cost for our member employees. So what they'll do is one of two things. They'll have scheduled workshops where employees can jump into the webinar, learn a little bit about investing, learn a little bit of how investing affects their overall financial picture. So think of how your 401k at work may affect your spouses, or what does that mean in retirement, or is your risk profile done right, or whatever the case might be. And then if they need something that's just helping them pick the right investments or pick the right amount they should give to their 401k, that they could actually schedule a one-on-one call with them through the computer, half an hour, free of cost, teaching them exactly what they should do. There's a study that was done by a group benefits company 2 years ago, and they found that 64% of employees who have financial education in the workplace feel more financially fit. So what I mean by that is they feel like they're able to take on more financial endeavors. They also, which this statistic's not here, but I could get it to you guys, also, the average person spends 4 hours a week on financial matters outside of work. We're living in a day and age where working at home is a commonplace. These statistics are from people before they were working at home. So if the average person spent 4 working hours a week on personal financial matters, how much are they spending now that they're working at home? So Invest in Knowledge is designed to give that information, give that knowledge, and have employees not need to spend all this research time, have information that's right at their fingertips. Oh, we already talked about why we set up this plan. We talked about the players that are there to help you with it. But every single person's plan is going to be unique because every single company is unique. So in order for us to really make sure that this plan is right for you, we want everyone to be able to have a free comprehensive benchmark services report, which basically says, hey, this is where your plan is. This is how the NUCA plan is set up. Here's where money's saved. Here's where value's added in hard dollar amounts. I'm sure everyone on this call understands that I could talk forever, but really what it comes down to is what are the numbers actually going to be? How are they going to affect me? Well, all we would really need is an email with a 408B fee disclosure and an asset statement. With that, we can do a comparison to find out how much will this help you and where is your biggest pitfalls. Send this out to you, let you review it. If it's something you want to pursue further, then you have a meeting with us and we actually have a final proposal for it. But it all starts with that comparison. Where are you? FYI, we also try to do comparisons each year, even when you are a client, a member, a company with us, because we do want to make sure you have the best plan. That's how you get started. And if you're not just ready yet and you're not really sure, you're just interested in finding out a little bit more, we do have many, many informational proposals. Now, these informational proposals are just designed to give or scratch the surface of what we talked about today so you could see it on writing and see if it'll fit for you. How you're able to get that is by using the QR code in the top right hand of your screen. So usually, or a couple of years ago, I had to explain what a QR code is. I don't think I need to do that anymore, right? Everybody has lived through COVID and have maybe been to a restaurant. It's on every single table. Take a picture, there's a menu. This works the same way. You take a picture, there's going to be a list of a few questions and checkoffs of what you want to accomplish. If you want something like the informational packet, check that off. We'll make sure it gets emailed to you. If you want to schedule a time with myself or Dan Henley, check off and look at our calendar, and we'll have a half an hour conversation about if this will help, if this won't. If you just want to compare this to what you currently have, you could send in your 408 B2 disclosures and asset statements, and we'll make sure we get that comparison out to you within the next 2 days. That being said, I wanted to make sure this conversation was short and sweet. It's in the middle of the day, and it's just an introduction to this. Could take any questions if we have any, and we'll go from there.
Thank you, Chris. Let's now open the webinar to questions. You can use the chat feature to submit a question, and I'll read the question to Chris. Or if you prefer, unmute yourself, state your name and company, and ask the question directly. Remember to remute yourself after you finish. And Chris,
I have a question.
Go on.
Okay, hey, we're in Colorado. We're a civil contractor, about 50 employees. We have not done a 401k for the last 15 years because of the fiduciary and other requirements, and we just haven't felt comfortable taking that on. What we're looking at is, as a recruitment tool, we think this is becoming an even bigger benefit. And so I guess my question would be, Christopher kind of alluded to it, but what would we need to do to set up, I'm assuming, a meeting, virtually, whatever, to get serious about moving the direction of what you guys have presented today?
Yeah. And Terry, right?
Yep.
So super easy. We can either send you an email directly, and it will come with what they call Calendly. It's a calendar link, and it will schedule right to our calendar of which is the best time for you. We're a few hours difference, so it will mimic that to make sure it's done right. Because you don't
Perfect,
because you don't have a current 401k, our first conversation is just going to be us trying to figure out how you want that plan designed to be. So for instance, you mentioned recruiting tool. You may say, hey, we want to match our clients at 3%, or we want to do profit sharing. Whatever it is you want to do, we'll set it up that way. We'll have a follow-up call saying, okay, if you wanted to do this, here's the next 3 things that will be done. Not on you, just telling you and keeping you in line in the process. We'll open up the 401k for the company, and we'll have workshops. It depends on the company, sometimes weekly or monthly workshops for employees to teach them how to use that.
Okay, great. And then, so you guys can reach out to me through my email. That would be fabulous, and get something set up. Now, I do have a quick question on these programs, and I've had other companies over the years, and so I'm somewhat familiar, but are there restrictions typically on, let's say you have 50 employees and only 10 want to participate? Are there requirements or minimums, if you will, that have to be involved in the program?
That's an amazing question, because I'm sure you're not the only one who has that concern. Especially when you give a benefit, you want to make sure the people who really appreciate it take advantage of it, and the people who do take advantage of it don't suffer for the people who don't. So it's a great, great question. And yes, there's a solution for that. So that's such a popular question that the IRS has actually created a loophole around the traditional rules to help companies like that. And it's something extremely popular. You probably heard the name. It's called the safe harbor. So it's just a little provision on a 401k called safe harbor to make sure, even if you have a scenario where you have 50 employees and only 10 or 5 or whatever, it doesn't matter, contribute, those 10 or 5 or whatever are never negatively affected by the people who don't.
Okay, great.
Chris, I've got one here. This is Bob. How long does it take for this process to get started?
Oh, great question. So, and it probably is a great question after Terry's statement. So it depends if it's a startup or if it depends if you already have a plan in place. If you is a startup, we usually like to delay it a little bit to make sure everything is done correct and everyone feels comfortable. So I usually tell everyone, let's give a 4 to 5 week window before we get started. A lot of startups actually like to start on some kind of anniversary, so that doesn't really play into effect. Let's say like second quarter, third quarter, annual, whatever. Doesn't have to be, just that's what I see a lot of companies want to do. For a what we would call a conversion, that would be a company that already has a 401k and just wants to move. Well, one, it'll just depend on your size. But if you're a company from 0 to 50 employees, that could get done within 2 to 3 weeks if you want it as early as possible. If you're a company from 50 to 500, we like to give a little bit more time, let's say 5 to 6 weeks. And then 500 above, it's customized, because a lot of times at that point you have more than one plan. So when you have more than one plan, we may want a little more flexibility. A great question.
Chris, I got another one. How does this work with payroll, and will we need to change payroll?
So that's an awesome question. So as people here who already have a 401k know, a lot of those contributions may go right from payroll into the 401k accounts of their participants. And some may do payroll in-house. Some may actually have a firm like ADP, Paychex, Paylocity, things of that nature. So Memberfy actually has done a great thing of linking up with some payroll companies, but that's not relevant here. Every week, Lincoln, ourselves, we have a relationship with every single payroll company you could possibly think of, unless you have some small mom and pop that we're not familiar with, which will automatically link to participants' 401ks. So there will be no change for you at all. If you do it in-house, there's definitely no change for you. You're just writing a different record keeper's name on top of that check.
And we're getting towards the half-hour point. Let's ask one more question, which is going to be, do contributions lower my company's taxable income, and is there a Roth option?
So great question. So yes, everything the company gives to help their employees will lower their taxable gains. So if you're an employer who maybe is super focused in your business, that's where I see a lot of, and we want to reduce some of our taxes. Yes, everything you provide to your employees will, every dollar you give. And I love the question of, is there a Roth option? The answer again is yes. A Roth has become super popular over the last 2 decades. It was just started in 1999, But in 2010, it really gained traction. Basically, what it says is I could put money into this account and it will grow tax-free forever. So when I take it out at 65, 70, 75, I'll never have to pay taxes on all that money that's made. So yes, it is available too.
Thank you, Chris. Let's go ahead and wrap this up because we're at the half-hour mark, and I know people have jobs and that sort of thing to do today. Chris, thank you very much for your time today. Present this information to our guests. I found it very helpful for myself personally as well. Last summer, NUCA began significantly expanding the NUCA Advantage benefits offered to help our members' bottom line and give members more choices. Through NUCA Advantage, new healthcare options are available today, and a large amount of new content is now included in NUCA Advantage at no additional cost to our members, such as the learning management system, a compliance calendar, OSHA logs, and much more. You can find it all online at NUCAadvantage.com. That's NUCAADVANTAG.com. Today's webinar was recorded, and a copy of the recording will be provided to all registrants and attendees. A recording of this webinar will also be made available on the NUCA.com website and our YouTube channel over the next few days. The PDF will also be put up there as well too of Chris's PowerPoint. And thank you for your time today to join us for Webinar Wednesday and supporting NUCA. Our next NUCA Webinar Wednesday will be held in early spring, sponsored by another invaluable NUCA national partner. We couldn't provide our depth of member services without the help of each of our supporting national partners. Thank you for your time this afternoon, and please enjoy the rest of your week.